Hey guys, and welcome back to Altcoin Buzz Spotlights with me, Leah Heilpan, the show where we speak to entrepreneurs, innovators, and thought leaders in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space. Joining me today is Monty Mumford, Chief Evangelist and core contributor at Sienna Network, the network where privacy meets DeFi. So guys, before we jump in, don't forget to hit the like button and hit subscribe so you never miss a video, and also let us know in the comment section below who you want us to interview next and which topics you want us to cover. Monty, welcome to Altcoin Buzz. How are you doing today?
I'm all right, actually. It's bank holiday in the UK, living in Brighton. Got a bit of a sore voice. I went to Wembley on Saturday to see my football team, Brentford, get into the Premier League for the first time in 74 years. So, I feel great, absolutely great.
Good. I'm also in the UK, and I know what you mean. When the sun's shining and there's football going on and you're down in Brighton, it's like a whole new world. It doesn't feel like Great England anymore. But let's jump into this because there are some interesting things going on. Just tell us about Sienna Network for those who don't know and what the vision is.
Well, the vision between Sienna and Sienna Network, I've been interviewed quite a few people in the crypto space. I've had a podcast called Block Speak that I've interviewed the biggest people. You know what I mean? I've done a lot of this stuff on stage, as I'm sure you've done similar things. So I joined the project, I think, at the end of December. The team, I would have to say, are the best people I've ever worked with, ever. And I've worked for some crazy companies. Do you know what I mean? And the thing that we do have in common, I think, always, is that we're massive fans of crypto, especially decentralization. And as we know, it's still in its early days, and prematurity or getting to things too early can sometimes not always be the best thing. I mean, I used to work in mobile games, and we were offered to buy Angry Birds, the game, for $250K, and we turned it down because their previous games have been so bad. So that's probably why I'm not in Tahiti. But you learn from your mistakes. But we all know about kind of energy consumption and the high transaction costs due to the lack of scalability and to some extent and probably more personally for this call for your audience is a lack of privacy. We're speaking on Skype, and Skype solved the problem of peer-to-peer telephony. And we believe, it's not exactly the same, but we think that's the same thing that blockchain does for coins. And the rise of decentralized finance, or DeFi, is significant, but it all comes with issues that I think most people know about that we think we can solve. The lack of scalability in both Bitcoin and Ethereum, by nature leads to high gas prices. And there's a solution to that, but it's going to be a few years down the road. But for now, we think that we solved the problem because the majority of our transactions are instant, and with a gas price of 5, 6, 7 cents compared to extraordinary amount of $120 at Ether. Sometimes $200.
Sometimes more, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. And this isn't really viable for a business, and not for less savvy or retail investors. That transactions of $200 to $300 that they're making, and they've got to pay that fee on top of everything else. That's the opposite of decentralized finance. that's old school traditional finance when you just cost for something you don't need to pay for. So if something is 30 to 35% of your transaction, it's going to put you off doing it again. So it's a major part of what we're trying to solve, And we also see that privacy is a major thing to solve. It's, makes life more difficult for bad actors, bots and others that are harming the average user.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You mentioned these high transaction fees and all these scalability issues because DeFi, I think, in my opinion, tends to sort of help those in more developing countries who can't actually even afford those kind of crazy transaction costs. So I'm totally with you. It kind of actually ostracizes the very people that it's actually trying to help, which is really interesting. So scalability is obviously key for you guys, but you mentioned privacy. So you did touch on it a little bit, talking about bad actors, but why is privacy, in your opinion, so important for DeFi?
Well, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the phrase front running. Um, sorry, got the Wembley cough. Front running is a major issue in DeFi, right? If you've got an overt and a public blockchain, people can see what you can do, and they can hijack your transactions by paying that higher gas fee. And then we think that inherent privacy prevents front running from happening, as bots cannot see pending transactions, and they won't be able to bid higher to front run that transaction. We think that's really, really important. The amount of bots in this industry is outrageous. I mean, we saw that when we launched our coin a month ago. It's almost threatening the way that this happens. It's like an invasion from outer space. You know what I
mean? Yeah.
It's a slightly strange image, but if you know what I mean. But we also believe that the next 10 years, or the next decade of focus on privacy is going to be a response to the data that are used by all the tech giants, everybody. We think that we can take this to the next level. We don't store any cookies. Anything that can relate to a user is completely and utterly private and anonymous. And that doesn't mean that it's dodgy or wrong. Mm-hmm. All it is solving the problem of front running by being democratic, if you will. Do you know what I mean? No one wants a bully to come in at the last minute and ruin your business. I mean, that's the antithesis of business. Everything that is done is directly between the users. It doesn't reveal anything about the holdings of a wallet or what transactions have been made for a certain address or anything like that. And just consider this in the old school fiat world. It would be utterly insane and odd that anybody could see the balance in your bank account and the withdrawals or the deposits that you've made over time. And inherent privacy prevents all this. And we utterly believe, like total evangelists, that adoption will be great for all of the right reasons. Your money should be private. Not only should you be able to use it more effectively without third parties taking or creaming off the money or stealing your transaction, money should be private. And privacy will make distributed identities possible. And this is something that we are aiming for in the very, very, very near future.
And I think it goes beyond just money. I think data in general has just been a huge kind of, the selling of data has been a huge characteristic of this last decade. I think I actually read today that the NHS, so for those that don't know, that's the UK's National Health Service, potentially selling British people's data for whatever. So this is just a huge issue. So I really understand this push for privacy. And you make a really interesting point. Just imagine if we could see how much is being held in somebody's bank account, even if it's anonymous. It's still odd, isn't it? Just to sort of know how much money is going in and out. Absolutely, it's strange. But another question that I had for you, would you say that Sienna Network is like the Linux of crypto?
Oh, good. You're very smart in the way that you understand what we're trying to do. Yeah, I mean, my job at Sienna is a chief evangelist and a core contributor to the Sienna Network. That is effectively what we're trying to do. We're creating a community. I mean, let's not be stupid here. We're in it to make money, and we hope that we do really well, and and everyone in the team, benefits from what we're trying to do. But I think unless you're completely, what's the word, selfish. The idea of Linux was an amazing idea, and we think that it's not exactly. We're not the Linux of crypto. The philosophy of that, I would agree with, absolutely. But we kind of see it as an application on top of Linux, if you want to use the analogy. It's an application that will initially provide a swap function through Sienna Swap, or our protocol Sienna Swap, and also Sienna Lend, which is, or we're very, very close to finishing it, a peer-to-peer lending protocol or application, if you like. And as you say, like Linux, everything is open source. Everything's made for the community. You can vote for new features, so it's almost democratic as well, which so presumably is what Linux originally was meant to be and still is. And not only can you vote for things that we suggest you vote for, you can also make proposals as well. So if you have a great idea, you add to the network, you add to the philosophy of what we're trying to do. And that makes the philosophy with Linux very, very close, I think.
So in terms of the Sienna token, which you mentioned earlier, can you tell me some of the benefits of holding it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I could probably talk about this forever. But first of all, Sienna is a governance token that gives holders a voter right, as I said before. This is important as it will have an impact on future features and functions at the Sienna network. It's not only, as I said, it's not only just a select group of people who decide where Sienna is heading. Obviously there's conversations that we have between us and what we're trying to do, and the partners, and the $11.2 million of investment that we received in the private and the public sale. It's not as if it's just about us or some, ivory tower where we make decisions and no one else can do anything about it. So it's not just an elite, I suppose. It's not only a select group of people that decides where we're heading. It's the power of the community and the crowd that is important. And that emphasizes the decentralization of the Sienna network. So if you're holding Sienna, you're like us. We're holding. We're not in it for the short term. There's no pump and dump nonsense. There's no scan. There's no rubbish. It's like, we know from the amount of interest that we got from the private sale that there is a huge need for what this is. And we don't just want to profit from it. We want everyone to be in it as long as we are, because we are in it long term. Believe me, we are.
I think long term is so important because, like you said, this DeFi space right now, unfortunately, has been absolutely infiltrated by a lot of rug pulls, a lot of dubious, shady actors. And I think it's giving it a really bad name. It's such a shame because although it's still so new and so experimental, I really see a huge use case for it. Like I mentioned earlier, particularly in developing countries, where people aren't actually able to get access to finance to help better their lives. So making that sort of commitment to be here for the long run makes all the difference. But tell me about the tokenomics of Sienna. Hopefully there's a limited supply. Is there any staking possibilities? How does it work?
Well, yeah, we're very open with our information, right? So there's a tokenomics page on the Sienna.network webpage, right? Instead of you having to do that, I'll tell you now. There are only 10 million tokens in total. 2 million of those tokens went 20% of the private sale, and that amount is going to decrease, as the platform are used. Tokens are burnt every time a swap is conducted, and we don't think we've ever seen this before. So that even though only 0.02% of the transaction is burned, it will automatically add to the price of Sienna. I mean, the price of the Sienna at the moment is, it's pretty stable. We launched on DAOmaker and Polkastarter to begin with. There's 350,000 tokens in supply at the moment. We're also on Uniswap. There are a couple of things to be announced in the next week or so with Qcoin. So we're very, very careful about not putting too many tokens out there and not devaluing what we think is a valuable asset. So the tokenomics is something that we've really, really thought out. There's a roadmap for the rest of the year, and we think we're treating our users, all the people that are going to benefit from our tokenomics, with respect, and that's what we're trying to do.
And in terms of Sienna's automated market maker, how is it different to all the other AMMs out there?
I mean, that's like how many universes are there out there? There are multiple answers to that question, to be honest, but I'll try and explain them as eloquently as I can. First of all, you'll be able to provide liquidity, and in turn earn fees and rewards for doing so. This, we think, will be extraordinarily lucrative initially, as liquidity is limited, but it will also balance out when liquidity levels are out and increase. So for early users, like most things, lunchtime adopters or early adopters, this will be extraordinarily beneficial to be there in at the start. The people who are in at the start are the ones who take the risks. the ones that see the vision, they're the ones that benefit the most. I think we've seen this in all types of technology, be that investment or using. But again, added to that, I would say from the user perspective, the users who swap their tokens, there are also multiple advantages. The first is the prevention of front running or the cheating, which I alluded to earlier, which is really, really, really a problem for the industry. And I think there are many reasons why DeFi has had a bad press. But this is a very, very clear thing that we're trying to do to increase, to improve that. What people think about that. So that's number one. So that's a problem that we're trying to solve, and I think DeFi has been trying to prevent it for some time. So that that's from the user perspective. It's unethical. It's harmful to the ecosystem, and it also adds to that negative perception of DeFi. Right. So it solves a few things at the same time. And nobody likes paying high gas fees. No one likes paying high transaction fees. You shouldn't have to do it. I mean, I've had a bank account for 30 years. I had no financial education when I was at school. And in fact, in many facts, I was against money because I was young and idealistic and a communist and all of that stuff. And it's only in the
it happens.
I think someone said if you're not a socialist when you're younger, then you probably didn't live. But I mean, we all grow up a little bit and understand that the world works in mysterious ways, and maybe not the ways that you want, but whatever. You know what I mean? But the amount of money that I've wasted on using a cash point abroad or getting loans when I had no money, I mean, I had no knowledge of what that was. So I hate, and I think even more than my fellow people at Sienna Network, I hate paying money for money. I don't want to get money for a mortgage. I don't want to pay money to borrow. My mum, lower middle class family, my mum, she used to hate HP, hire purchase, where you can buy something and get it up front and then you pay for it over 4 years. That type of thing keeps people down. That keeps those in power in power. So I'm not saying that we're a revolution or anything like that, but low gas fees is what the industry needs, and for our community, the burning of 0.02% of the swap amount favours absolutely everybody.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. There are all these different lending practices in traditional finance which absolutely screw over the little guy. I mean, don't even get me started on student loans and how that is a fantastic way to keep you indebted to the banks. It's unbelievable. And I just think, well, my next question is, where are you guys going with Sienna Network after this? But maybe like some kind of financial education sector or something like that. Because I feel we just have to wake people up. What is going on is unbelievable. And I think when you go into this space, you get absolutely red-pilled, as they say, and you just, wake up to how the traditional system is kind of just built to screw you over, really.
Well, I mean, sometimes out of little oak, out of little acorns do oak trees grow, I think. And you might have just helped us yourself, actually, because me talking about, it's to have an educational page on the Sienna website would be very difficult, right? Because most people that come to our site probably know more than me about what we're trying to do. So it would be very difficult to put something on there to say, this is financial education. But the more that you say that that I've been thinking in the last 40 seconds, is that we should definitely maybe change. Definitely maybe. It sounds like an Oasis album. we should maybe do something like that to maybe kind of equate that with our philosophy that we hate traditional ways of doing things. You made me think, which is great, which isn't bad for a bank holiday Monday. But okay, thank you. But back to your question.
I've left you with a lot to think about, right?
Helps me a bit, which is the job of a good interviewer, I think. Well played. I think that it will clearly be Sienna Lend. I mean, that's like but with privacy. That means that you can lend and borrow tokens, and people, again, obviously, I have to go back to this all the time. Be protected by privacy. and instant tractions at a very, very low cost. We also believe that distributed identities are also very, very important, and will make it easier for institutional investors to comply with regulations when we believe they consider crypto as a digital asset class. When it comes to front running for us to kind of turn that negative phrase on its head, we are very, 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 very careful about future regulations. So everything that we do is prepared for any regulation when crypto does become a digital asset class, and that is seen as a case not just by hedge funds or big companies, but also by governments. You know what I mean? So the participation institutional investors is really important for this ecosystem. We talk about the community, we talk about voting rights, we talk about Linux, we talk about all of those things. But an ecosystem cannot just survive on no disrespect to smaller investors or smaller investors in the community, but if we get institutional investors involved who realise, that they've got pension pots or they've got all of these, assets that are making no money, or 0.1% interest, or the idea of negative interest rates for people who've saved all their lives. You need institutional investors in there. You need institutional investors that will educate, as you said earlier, their investors. It's not particularly always our job to do that. If they know money, if they know finance, if they know decentralized finance, if they do know that, they can educate their users. And it's not a granddad or a grandmother, or even increasingly seeing this of teenagers that are being influenced by influencers just trying to shill coins or anything like that, and they've been going through a crypto summer until recently. Real education about what we're trying to do here is not just make people money through speculation. It's to create a new financial system that is fairer and private, and no one can see your bank account, and no one can see what you're doing, and no big, I was going to say a bad word, but I think you know what word that is, that comes in and hijacks your transaction at the end. That participation of institutional investors is vital to that ecosystem, and it's also vital to the volume that they bring to transactions and liquidity pools. We think it's highly, highly important.
Yeah, it is, and I think sentiment is slowly changing in the market, in the world outside of crypto, especially in this bull market, and with different sorts of interest rates and opportunities and just everything that's available in this industry. And I just hope that that this kind of this sentiment does continue to grow outside of the space, and more people jump in, and more people sort of wake up and realize that really this is the place to be, this is the future. Monty, it's been such a pleasure, so good catching up with you. I want to thank you so much for coming on, and we will have to catch up with you again in, I don't know, roughly about 6 to 12 months, just to see how everything's going with Sienna Network.
Could I just add one thing?
Yeah, of course you can.
Just one thing that I wanted to say about the utility of the Sienna token, if you've got a couple of minutes. I think it's quite important to the rest of the things that you've said. The Sienna token, the utility of the Sienna token is built for the long term, right? Not just for short term yield. There are no opposites, and focusing on the long run also, it kind of delivers short term application. But what I would just like to kind of end with is like about building lucrative incentivization mechanisms into the token structure that makes Sienna super attractive compared to many other tokens. And just for the numbers, liquidity provider fees are powerful, and while others charge 0.3% for liquidity providers, we burn 0.2% for each transaction and deliver 0.28% to the AMM LPs. And we think this is far more attractive than providing 0.3%, which is obviously more than 10 times higher, to the LPs, liquidity providers, and they'll get better benefit. And that minting pool is meant partly for rewarding users of the platform, but for also increasing the circulation slowly and ensuring the distribution of Sienna is broad. Plus, and you'll see lots of other projects having great success without that minting pool. And we think it will be up to the community via the governance to decide how new mechanisms should function on the network in the future. And I know I put this in at the last minute, but we think it's very, very important and very, very important for the community. And in response to your conclusion, we would love to talk to you more at any time, especially by someone who does their job so well. You're better than me at interviewing, and I'm supposed to do this for...
Don't be silly. I've seen loads of your blog speak stuff. Like, I know the guys that you've been working with. They're really good friends of mine. So yeah, no, blog speak is brilliant. So guys, also check out blog speak. But Monty, thank you so much, and we will catch up with you in the next few months.
Enjoy the sunshine. Have a lovely day.